are you today? Thanks for having me. Maybe a couple of things first. Thanks for the introduction. Most of it has been said. Been doing development with Sencha technology for over 7 years now. Just wanted to ask up front, who knows about Sencha and XJS? So please raise your hand. Okay, that's some. Who has been working with Sencha for more than 1 year? More than 2 years? 3? 4? 5? 6? 7? Okay, I think we got a winner here. Jeff has a t-shirt for you. Great. So if you have any questions later on, yeah, that's great. It's only been around 7 years, so that's really great. Yeah, my email, my website, my Twitter account, and my GitHub, and also the slides from today. I will have them online later on, along with the code. So every step we're going to take today is a step in a GitHub repository. You can download that and follow along, repeat it at home. We'll be doing a live coding session. So that's the things we'll need. We need XJS because we're doing an XJS workshop. We need Sencha command to help us along building our application, scaffolding our application, and then minifying, building it for production. An IDE or a text editor, anything like Atom, Sublime Text, WebStorm, Eclipse, anything is fine. We need the terminal just to run a couple of commands to help us, and a web browser. We'll be debugging and looking what we've done in the web browser so we can check out what we have been doing. And what we will use today, what I will show how easy it is to build an application with XJS and what these concepts are. We'll get into that when we are at the certain steps. We'll be using a viewport to help us do our layouting and putting our application together. We'll be using a data view to hook our data stream into and visualize our data stream. A container, we'll be putting a video stream in this container, and we'll also use a tree panel for some selection, some filtering, a model that will be the representation of our data, a store to host these data, a tree store to host another layout, another set of data in a tree, in a nested set sort of fashion, and a controller to host our business logic and to listen for events that we're firing in the browser or later on our mobile devices. So, and just here, if you have any questions, please ask right away. So, let's get started. That's the thing we'll be doing first. We'll be setting up an application right away. We'll get everything to set up an application that looks like that, just with some simple commands. And the first thing we'll do is use our little tool Sencha command to create a workspace. So a workspace is the place where we will have all our applications, shared code between our applications and the framework libraries in. We'll be doing that in the console, and after we establish our workspace, we'll be starting and scaffolding our application. So for that, let's just jump into the console. I have already set up my workspace, but to show you how easy that is, let's just do that. You would do that in your folder of choice, for example in an htdocs code folder. It actually doesn't matter where you put it, because we'll be using an internal Sencha server, a debug server, Sencha command server, to help us. So you don't have to bother installing an Apache, Tomcat, or any other server locally on your machine. So the first thing we'll do is we'll just type Sencha generate workspace, and then we use the -ext. This is our scaffolding, so we want to use the ext framework, and this by default will download if you didn't download it before, XJS framework libraries to your local machine and use it later on. And we'll just call our workspace JSDC 2014. So this will be the folder that is generated to host our applications in. So now we can... Hello? Oh, okay. So now we see our JSDC 2014 folder has been created. If we navigate into that, then we see, okay, there's some little scaffolding going on right away. We have the .sencha folder. This is used internally by Sencha command for the build processes later on, and just to host where our paths are to the framework, to our applications, and for our different build processes. Then ext, that is either I already had it locally on my machine, so it didn't have to download it from the Sencha CDN, but if you downloaded it, it's getting copied into your new workspace and can be used by any application you use or you build inside of this workspace. And then a packages folder, this we will use later on as well. This is something where we can put shared code into, shared code to have just to develop and especially maintain and support once instead of in every application we build. For me, I'll just go out of here because I already created this this workspace, and I have the application already running, so I'll just scaffold. I'll just open the Sencha server to show you how the application that we're building will look like in the end. And we'll just use Sencha's file system web start command, and this will start a local host on our machine that we then just can copy, go into our web browser, open that up, and fire it up. Oh, okay, we're offline, so no worries. We'll be using a real live stream. This was just a security for me if we didn't have a great Wi-Fi. And I think it's really great what the organizers have put up here. So big hand for the organizers. We have some sitting here. Great Wi-Fi. So it will look like this. So we can have our little video stream displayed, all the videos, the top videos we choose to use in the middle. Then when we select one, we will get a preview, and this will later on directly stream the video in an HTML5 video tag. On the left hand side, the little tree In this case, it's just a list, but we use that as a tree because we could categorize our countries into Europe, America, Asia, and just as we like. But let's get to the real application and scaffold it right away. So if I go in here, I have a couple of other files, and because it's all on GitHub for you later to download, we'll just, in our next step, we'll just navigate into our X folder, into our application SDK. And what we'll then do is do a Sencha generate app, and we call our app tunes. And we will put it, in my case, in the examples in the slides, it says put it in a folder tunes, but I already have that. So for this live demonstration, and I hope all the live coding is going well, we'll just put it in a live folder. By the way, is the font good for you? Do you want me to use a lighter theme? Is that okay? Font size and everything? Okay. So now we have scaffolded our application. We'll just navigate back to the root of our workspace and once again do Sencha file system web start. We can also tell it what port to use. I'm always too lazy. So if you're stuck like me sometimes, there's always the help. Oh, at the wrong place. That's better. So that's our application workspace, and then our application is sitting here, and that's exactly the starter application we've been seeing in the slide deck. Let's just get in here. So this is the step we're doing. Generate our application. It's set up. It's already an application that is usable, that has some features turned on. So our next step will be to lay out our application so we can use it. We'll set a place for our country list. We'll set a place for our videos to choose and set a place for our preview. And for that, we'll just do a little bit of coding in our IDE, in our text editors. Everything in XJS coding is done in a JSON type syntax. So you write only JavaScript. You don't have to write HTML. You write entirely in JavaScript. And then we'll put our... Okay, we're not entirely writing just JavaScript. Sometimes we use a little bit of HTML just to get our data views right, for example, to get templates where we put our data into. So we'll be doing this next. What we then see looks similar to that, but before we get to this screen, let's just go to our text editors and build our application. So maybe here we just done a scaffolding. We have set up an application that already looks like an application. But what did the Sencha command process scaffolding, what did it do? So it has some templates that it creates, that it uses for us. So we don't have to write everything on our own. So the first step we have is an index.html file. And in this index.html file, you might wonder, there's only one single JavaScript element. So only one script tag in the header of our HTML, and that's all we need. No matter how many files we will use later on in our application, it automatically will include and bootstrap these files into the browser. So no need for any third-party plugins like Require.js, Browserify, or something like that. That's all in the framework. You don't have to learn all these different plugins and third-party tools. It's all in one package. So, and this bootstrap file will then, if we look into it, it's a large file. It will just bootstrap everything for us in the right order, and finally it will load this app.js file. So this is the starting point of our application. We usually never touch this file ourselves. So this is Central Command's job. It creates this file, it manages this file. Everything we really care about is in our app folder. So in our app folder, the next inception point we get to is the application.js file. And in this application.js file, now in XJS 5, we don't do a lot of work there, except if we might have some things that we want to have shared across our entire application, like data stores. So points or little containers where our data are shared in. We can instantiate them here, but in our case, we will just go into our view and use what we've seen in our app.js file. So our viewport, and this is where what I had in my slides, the viewport to host our entire application, to host the entire screen. And what this viewport also does, it adjusts to the browser size automatically, shrinks and enlarges all the bits and pieces that are inside of our application. So it's a layout manager and a rendering manager to take care of browser sizes on different devices, desktops, laptops, tablets. So that's already done for us. We don't have to care about that ourselves. And this will then start our main view, our main file. The starting point of our application. By default, it's called main, but you can just change it as you need. So if we look into this main file, you maybe just start to clean up a little bit so it's easier to read. We don't need the comments at the top. And we'll just clean that up a little. So what do we have here? We define, and this is something in the class system, so XJS, the Sencha frameworks, they use a class system, an object-oriented approach to JavaScript development, because JavaScript itself doesn't bring a class system, object orientation in itself. For Java developers, C developers, or PHP developers, some of this might really look familiar. We define our own class. In this case, it's called, in its namespace, tunes view main, and then the class file itself. And we extend from a container, so a base JavaScript, XJS JavaScript class, and we give it a lazy loading type, what we call in XJS an X type. So later on, if we wanted to use that, we will see that later, for example, down here, where we just use a panel. Sorry for that. I should look here. We use an X-type panel, and inside of the framework itself, the class for this X-type panel is called X.panel. So So instead of writing this entire namespace, we have a lazy way, because we all want to be more productive. So we're always lazy. We want to write as less code as we possibly can. So in our case, we just go with that. What the controller and the view model is, I'll explain later when we get to that. So our border layout, that's the next thing we'll touch on. So the border layout is there, that's best explained here. So a border layout can have different regions, and these different regions are automatically scaled to fit on any screen size. So in our case, where we just have this little title with the tunes header and this little button, this would be our west panel. We can also have an east panel, a north panel as a header, and a south panel as a footer. And then the rest of our screen is used as a center panel that always takes the rest of the remaining space that's not blocked or not used by any of the other regions. So in our case, we don't want to use it like that. So we want to just change it a little bit, and I was a little bit lazy again, so I just no, it's not loading. What's happened to my snippets? Items. We just have a little snippet, and in our case, what we use here is the container as the center where we put our videos later, then a container to the west that will host our country list, our country tree, and a container in the east to host our video preview. And all we have to do, so the center here in the center region always stretches to the remaining space. We just have to tell the west and the east panel how wide they are. For a north and the south panel, we would just use a height. We don't have to define anything here for the center region. So, and of course, we want to give the entire thing a title. Maybe call it iTunes Video. I call it iTunes Video Preview because later on we will be using a live stream from Apple's iTunes to show us top videos. And to use the title, we just have to slightly change our container of inheritance to a panel, and we'll just save. Go to our browser, reload, and I made a mistake. Forgot something. Oh yeah, you should always watch out for your commas. So it looks slightly different. It has a blue background, but that shouldn't matter at the moment. We will be theming our application in just a couple of steps. So we're already set up. We have our west region, we have our center region, and we have our east region where we want to put our things into. So, okay, this looks boring. Let's put some data into it. So our center will be what we call a data view. A data view has a template, and this template will consume a data stream and render the information in this data and these records in this data object into the defined template. So here we just use this X type. As I said before, We don't want to use x.view.view because that's actually the namespace we inherit from, but the X type is called data view because it was always a data view, and this is for backwards compatibility with older versions of XJS. We again put it into the center, and we tell it to automatically add a scroll bar if we need to, and then we tell it to use an item template. So if we have an array of data objects, this item template will be used for every record in our array, instead of having to do a for loop or for each loop and stamp everything into our template. This is all done. Then in here, that's for later, we just attach some little helpers that will be CSS classes for hover effects and when we select an item. So, but to be correct here, just like in Java or in other languages, we always want to be right in our inheritance chain. And down here we use the lazy X type, but for the framework to resolve this X type, we should tell what we use. So really do the inheritance chain to do the requires chain. So we'll just add an xView.view up here, so the framework can resolve this later on in its inheritance chain. And when we now reload our view, okay, the video that we just put in as an HTML placeholder is now gone, but we don't see anything. So this thing now is empty. Why is that? Okay, we defined a template, but we didn't define what to put into this template or what to render this template against. So what we need next, so that we end up with a screen like that, is to define what we call a model in the store. So anyone here who is not already an XJS developer has an idea what model in store will do for us. We'll give away a t-shirt for the right answer. Anyone? Any answer. There's no wrong answers. Hey, no one wants a t-shirt. Okay. I'll explain. So in XJS, we have something we call a data package. And the data package is there for us to help us consume data that we have stored on our servers in our databases and build representations on our client. So we can use these data completely in the client. We could also use this entire data package to do offline support if we build a mobile application. So we can use anything in here offline as well, and next time we connect, we just sync with the server. That's all possible. And on here, the real tool, the important 2 bits really is the model and the store. That's the 2 things we'll be using today, along with the fields. So the fields is just an array that describes how our model, our record looks like, what our data feed looks like, and how to interpret that. And then we'll also be using a proxy. The proxy is there to do our AJAX requests to a back-end server, to an online service. And there are several proxies in the framework right away for us to use. So there's a simple AJAX proxy, but there's also a JSON-P proxy if we needed to request data from a resource that is not in our domain we're running in our web application. There's proxies for SAP connectors, for CRUD operations for RESTful services, XML and JSON data. So that's all prepared. We just have to do, as we said before, do a lazy usage with something like an X type, and everything is resolved by the framework for us. So how does this look? We'll just have our tools do the heavy lifting for us. Creation of the file, put it in the right directory, and also already put some information in for us, like all the fields we'll be using. And this is fields we'll be using, as I said before, an Apple iTunes store or a JSON string. And the information we need for our application is an ID, is an artist, a title, image, a link, a preview, and because we're using video, we're also using a codec, so the browser that's interpreting the HTML5 video tag knows what codecs to use. And if we go ahead and just copy this little thing, well, I can copy it, sorry for that, you have to type it. But, well, I'm the lazy guy. I'll just open a new tab in my terminal, then navigate to my live folder, because I'll just leave the server running in the other tab while I do some other scaffolding in here. So I'll just do Sencha, generate, model, tune, ID, artist, title, image, what was the other one, link, preview, and codecs. Is that right?
ID.
Oh. Thanks. The second file of a typo I do will get you a t-shirt. And I'll probably have another one. So we just created our, it doesn't tell you a lot, but if we go back into our IDE, into our text editor, and go to the models folder, there's a new file, and it just has the fields we created. It has the name we told command to use for our model, and it has the inheritance attached to it right away. So that's what we need. But I'll just have to take a quick peek into the original model, because I forgot to do the lazy instantiation here. I also forgot to get the right URL. Where is my URL? That's live coding, and if you forget something, you're screwed. Just give me a second. I know where to look. I'll need that URL. So just to see what our data that we will get from our backend source will look like, we'll just open up the URL quickly, and then I'll explain what we will do in our model so we can read this JSON. That's what Apple is returning when we open the URL. So in here, I'll just copy that for a second. I'll just copy it a lot. So we had our name in our field already, and we also had the type before. So if I go back, that's what we had so far. So we have the name, this is the name of the field, the name we later will be using in our template, and the type, this is just the field type that is used by the framework to read the data. So auto, if you put an auto type into your field definition and your JSON, for example, returns a true or false, a Boolean value, because JSON itself is nothing but a string, the auto type in the field will convert this string, this Boolean string, into a real JavaScript Boolean. And same thing is, for example, for date. So if I have a date string I return from my server, then there's a type date I can use to directly tell it, use a date. This is always a date, or this is always a Boolean, this is always an integer. So these values get automatically transformed, converted from a string that I have on my server side into a JavaScript representation. So I can use them as it was a date object in JavaScript, instead of having to parse that myself. And what we're putting in here, for example, this mapping, is something we use against our data feed we get from Apple. If we look back here, okay, we need to find we'll start at the entry point entry. And then we need to navigate to find our ID. And this is really hard to read, but there should be an ID somewhere. We'll later use the image as well. So these are the texts we'll be using. We'll be using the links. And these are just the mappings. In XML, if this was an XML feed, this would be similar to an XPath that we use. So we tell our model, our representation of our data on the client, where to find the data we want to use in our application. And in XML, as I said, this would be an XPath. And we just resolve the things in here, so this will later on point to the right value inside of the JSON. Then what we need to use, I'll need that. And we're getting our data from a different resource than we are running on. In our example, in the demo here, we'll use localhost, but because of service or of browser security features, we can't call itunesapple.com from our local host. I think we'll not use the US. We use Taiwanese list, and because we're not using, or we're not allowed to do a direct AJAX request, we'll just wrap our request into a JSON-P, into a callback. So then we'll just use the JSON-P proxy type. That's like the X type we talked about before. Here it's just called here it's just called type, because the X type is for view for visual representations. And to do our inheritance chain again, right? We need to add that here as well. And I might have to take a peek. I never remember all of it. So the fields are reader, JSON, and our ext.data. proxy.jsonp. That's the things we're using. So now we have our inheritance chain right. Okay, what happens if we go back to our browser and reload? Will we see our data? Yes? Or no? Oh. We don't see anything. Why is that? Any idea? We've been talking about models and store. So at the moment, we only created the data representation in our client, but there's nothing there yet to consume this data. And that's what we have to do next. So now we'll go into we'll go back into, I'll just clean up here a little bit, into our main view. So this data view should consume our data, but it can't consume the model itself right away, because the model is just a single representation of one record. So now we need something to put all these data into. And this is what we'll be using is a so-called store. So what we'll do here is, we'll just clean up here again a little bit. So, and this is a new concept in XJS5. We have what we call a view model. This view model itself lives close to the view. It shares the same life cycle. It is instantiated only if we instantiate our view. It gets automatically destroyed when we don't longer use our view, when we destroy the view. This is really great for performance. There's no leaking variables. There's no so the garbage collection is automatically done for JavaScript objects, for class instances we don't use anymore. So in here we just define our stores, and we call our stores tunes. Our model was called tune. So we'll call the models, we use a singular, and for those stores we use plural. Because the model is a single record and the stores is a combination, is a set of records. And to have it loaded when this instance is created, we just add a flag to automatically load this store. So now we've created our store, and now the only thing we need to do is to consume this store somewhere. And we'll do that in a two-way data binding. We bind the store property of our data view. So the store will be consumed by the data view and stamp the data that is saved in the store into our template. So this is where we just say, okay, we use this store property, and this is gathered from our view model where we added our store. Okay, let's load this thing. Nothing happened yet. Why is that? It's not loading. Okay. That can happen. We have defined our inheritance chain, but maybe our bootstrapping mechanism hasn't picked up that yet. What we can do here is just a little simple trick where a Sencha command also helps us out. We just do a little Sencha app refresh. And this will refresh our bootstrapping mechanism. And now we should be able to load our application. still some error. Tunes model. Tune. Okay. I was telling everyone to always use the requires, the inheritance chain, but then I forgot to do it myself. Just do a little refresh. No more errors, and when we close that and go down here and look at the XH, no, that's not an XHR, and we'll just look for iTunes. So this is our JSON-P call to our remote address in or iTunesApple.com and get the top 100 videos in Taiwan. We can scroll down here. That's why we added the auto scroll. If we didn't do that, this wouldn't work. So this looks a little strange because it's all just one set of data, everything below each other. So let's get back to our presentation. And so we have this view now. It's a little bluish, but we'll take care of that. Because, and this is all explained in the slides, what we've just done. Create our model, add our mappings, add our proxy with the remote resource, consume our data, and then finally add it to our data view to stem. And next we'll create a better user interface, so it looks nicer, not this bluish. Let's take a little green and make the items in the data view float and use the maximum space available. So in here again, to create a new user interface, new coloring, a new theme, we'll just use Sensu command to help us out. And I'll copy this command and just say, let's clear the screen and say Sensu generate me a theme and extend from an X theme crisp touch. So XJS ships with a couple of different themes, and we'll be using a crisp touch. So crisp is the name of the theme we'll be extending upon, and we'll use the touch part of it, because later on we'll be using the application we built for our desktop and our mobile as well. And with the touch specialized theme, we'll just get a little bigger white space, so we're free to touch all the things. Instead of with the mouse, it's easier to touch to click smaller things, but we'll be using that. And you would run this command now. I already did that in preparation, so I won't create the theme, or I can create the theme, but maybe I call it just different. Use theme touch. I'll call it just tunes theme. Oh, let's call it live theme touch. So, okay, not a lot we see here. But now, if we go back, and that's what I talked about before, we have a packages folder down here. So packages folder, oops. There we have this newly created live theme touch. This is where we have our theme, where we just can define how our application should look like, and we can create these themes and use it across applications. So we only have to define how our applications should look like. This could be for our company, for our clients. We build a couple of applications, but we want them all to look alike, the same coloring, the same look and feel. So we just have to define it once. We never do any copy and paste. We don't copy a CSS file from one place to another, and then if we have to change something in one application, we have to change it maybe to 10 other applications. We have a single point where we can maintain and program and define our entire theme for all our applications if we like. And we can also have different themes. Maybe for the Christmas season we want something that looks a little bit like Christmas, or for New Year's that have some flashy CSS3 firework effects or something like that. But to go in here, so it scaffolds some things for us, but the only place we really care about is this Sass folder, because we'll be using Sass. We're not writing CSS ourselves, so we'll be using Sass. Anyone never heard about Sass? So, you heard about less? Never? So think about Sass or Lass. That's just two different, well, they're similar, but it's different syntax. But think about it like CSS on speed, on steroids. So, because we always want to not repeat ourselves. We always want the dry and the kiss principle. Dry stands for don't repeat yourself. And anyone knows what KISS stands for? There's a t-shirt.
It is stupid and simple.
Yeah, absolutely right. Keep it stupid simple. You got it winner. Okay. So in here we'll just have these places where we can put different things. So we have a variables folder. This is the place we want to put CSS or SCSS in this case, classes or variables that we use before the framework itself. So it uses scaffolding from the framework themes that we extended upon and just overrides these. And everything in the source folder is there to use after the framework. So we can address the framework itself, but later on add our own classes, add our own theming. So let's just create a new file in here and call it components.scss. So what we'll be putting in here is just, we use the base, well, I'll just have that created. So we'll just override the base theme. We just want a different color. This is a green color, and we just say, okay, everything that is a panel, your header background color, and there we see the dry principle. Don't repeat yourself. We define the color only once in the second line, and we use this variable in the fourth line where we assign it to the panel header background. And then if we want to change the base color of our application, we just have to change it once instead of doing it over and over and over again. It may be missing a part or overriding somewhere where we didn't want to because we just did a general search and replace. So this way we can keep it simple. That was the KISS principle. So this is the override of our base thing. Now we add our own styling. We also call that components.css, and in here we just have a couple of different CSS classes. So we define a couple of variables here. If you use a background color white, you use a font color that just inverts our background color. So we use Sass methods, functions to help us out. There's something like invert. Later on we see something like lighten, darken. So we can just say lighten this color by this much percent, or darkening it by this percent, or there's something like mix two colors. So we can define our base colors for our application and just use these really powerful helpers and have that all figured out. And in here, for example, we write a div.video, and later on there's this other tag, figure. In CSS, we would write it that way, div.video. And then to do the figure that's in the right chain, we would write div video figure. But keep it stupid simple. Don't repeat yourself. We don't want to repeat this div video later on for the fig caption, for the over video as the additional class. So we just nest these things inside of each other, and Sass will take care of that. These classes that I just deleted again, they're created in the right order. It's really great to help us out, write less code and have better maintainable code. So now we've created these things. Now we need to use them. Now we need to consume them somewhere. And for that, we just have to go back into our scaffolding process. And in this case, we have something called app.json. So this is a JSON syntax that's picked up by the build process of Essential Command. It just looks into that, okay, our index path, our path to start our application from is this index HTML alpha. But maybe we're on a Java system and our file is not called index.html, but it might be called index.jsp or home.jsp, or on PHP it has the PHP ending. We can change that here just to use it in the right way. It also will help us to figure out where our application lives, where overrides live, what framework to use. And now, because the theme we're using at the moment is called Neptune, but we just created our own theme that was called live-theme-touch. So we just change what theme to use, and the scaffolding process, the build process with Essential Command will take care of requiring that when we load our index.html file, so to pull in the right CSS files. And then just a couple of other things that we don't really have time to talk about, but this is the things we need today. Change our theme, and then because we changed the theme, now we have to go back into our terminal, and we have to build our theme for the very first time because we created an entire new theme. And to do that, we're not building for a production environment yet, so we just do essential app build development. So we're building for a development environment. The difference, so there's 3 environments that Sencha command ships with by default. That's development, testing, and production. So the difference between development and testing is development will load every file we create single-handedly. So we created a model.js, a tune.js, we created a main.js, we created a main view, a main model.js. So these are all loaded separately in the browser. That is good for development because we can dig into, we can scope into these files, debug into these files. Later in production, we don't want to block the browser, the user, by downloading maybe hundreds of files. What we want is just one single file for the browser to download. So this is what the build process is doing, and the default is the production. So if we don't tell it to do a development build, it will create a production build. Then everything is compressed and minified into just one JavaScript file. So this is good for performance. This is good for the end user because he has a faster application right away. Testing sits in between. So testing will create the same one file but won't minify it. So we still can debug into it. It has all the comments still in it. While the production in the end is stripped of all the comments, is stripped of all the white space, and is minified and optimized. But now we're using development because we aren't done yet. So this will just go on a little bit and create these things. So it creates this tunes, all CSS for our, it removed the one I had because I already created it in the other, but now it created it for us for the first time. And now, if we go back into our application, it's not green. It should be green. It should be green. What have I done wrong? In my packages. Components. Did I spell it wrong? Is it just component? Oh, it's only component. Okay, let's rename this thing. Rename that thing. Name again. So, but we've already seen that it looks different, and this is because we extended from a different theme now. Our overrides and our extensions didn't work. So now we have the green title, we have the green or the grayed out videos, and we have a hover effect that puts the blue border around it, and when we select one, it gets the green border. So that's all working. So we've done theming, and the cool part is if we went into our bar and what color would you like me to put in here? Pink? Is that okay? Oh, I hope that looks good. Oh, pink's not the color. What would be a nice color? I always like that one, but that's a green color as well. Let's just do a red. and now it's red instead of green. The over effect is still the same because we defined the over right away, but the selected uses the red just the same. Okay, while that runs, our theming, here are just some of the code in the slides as well, and how to use the theme in our application. Do the build so it gets picked up. That's the next thing we want to do. We want, when we select a video, we want the preview to show and play, and this is how it would look like. Which is instant while and we can say, okay, autoplay, mute. We have all the possibilities we can use in HTML5 video tags to put in here. So let's get to it. And just before we get into the coding, just as a brief example, we will be using an MVVM pattern. I think everyone has heard about the MVC pattern, Model View Controller. Do you guys also know about the MVVM pattern? Model View Model. We've been already using it. We had our view, our main JS file, and we have our main model JS file where we put our store into. And this gives us control. The view model, our main model file, consumes the model representation of our data to hook that into our view. And that we did through the store that we consumed in our data view. So, and we'll see now how this can work together with a view controller. So the view controller would be the place where we put our business logic into. To do something when an item is clicked, when the browser is resized, when a view is closed, a window is opened, a form field gets focused and data entered. That's all where this goes hand in hand, and then enables this two-way data binding. So in our template in the data view, in the center, if we have something happening as an event, an item select event, a click event, we react to that through the model and just use or attach something to a template and have that all rendered. We don't have to write, okay, if someone clicks here and we have a record, find this other component with a preview and render the data there through its template. But this is something the framework can do for us, and it's really fast. We click, it's already there. And we don't have to write this logic ourselves. This is what data, two-way data binding is really about. And how we use that, well, we can do it in two ways. So we can bind data that we call tune. This would be something where we put it in our model. We just have this little property called data that can house or that can hold a representation, a JavaScript representation of an object, and then we have listeners, event listeners attached to react on something. And in our business logic, in our view controller, so this is how the main model might then look like. In our business logic, in the controllers, we can have additional business logic. We can write it that way. But if we don't have additional business logic, we don't have to write a single line of code in our business logic because we're not using it that way. But instead, we'll be using just the selection that we have in our tunes view that is in our center. So let's do that now. For that, we'll just go ahead and change our preview to really be able to consume data that we selected in the center. Okay, so in here we just put a container, east panel with its width. We give it an extra CSS class that we need. We attach a template so the data can be rendered to, and in these templates we can also have checks, JavaScript checks, so callback function to be invoked, and only render this template if data is selected. So if someone deselects in the center, don't run this and put out undefined header 1, undefined header 2, and a non-functioning video, but let's do it that way. And I've set the video to be autoplay and muted. Shall I turn on the sound? You want to hear some of the music? Okay, let's do that. Okay. Just double checking if we have, no we don't. We need something else. So for that to work, we just need to tell the data view that it has to have a name, a reference name, so it can be picked up. Okay. Let's see. In a live session, I always call it code and pray. No business logic attached. Just one line of code, bind, use the reference and the property selection, because that is what the framework is doing. If I click on something here, and this selection property gets the object that is that model representation, and the other one that is bound to this selection automatically picks that up. And we could do, but in our case, we don't have any additional business logic. So if we used our controller, then we needed the business logic, or if we had business logic like checking if the video was, I don't know, X-rated or something, and we then don't want to display it, that would be additional business logic. Then we would attach the listeners, the on-item select listener and the on-item deselect listener to do exactly the same, but with additional checks up front. So, but I think it's more impressive to just click. It's pretty fast. Only thing we need here is an additional CSS. Okay. That one. Let me go back to our presentation. So now we want to have our country selection, because we might not just be building that for Taiwan, but maybe for international use. So let's see what other countries have as their top 100 videos on iTunes. Here we just in this example here for today, we'll be using an inline code, an inline tree to host our data. We're not requesting the country list from a backend resource from any other server. We'll just code that for us to be consumed locally. And we will need another model because, well, it's a data representation still, even if it's local. So we'll just be coding that, and then we'll use this in a tree and put that in here. Then we'll add a tree panel to our view that will be our west panel that is currently empty, and consume this new store. And now, or here, we will then add a select listener, because by selecting a country, we have to interact with our tune model that has the proxy that requests the data from Apple, from iTunes. We need to tell it what country to load. And that's what we're doing in our business logic. So that will be the function we're coding to do that. And then we'll have our final app ready. Okay, let's add our new model. We all know how that works. Senja, generate, model, country. Yeah, well, no chance for a second fusion. They all look the same. Oh, I have to. Okay, I just wanted to show something. Because our countries actually, they not just have an ID. I just programmed it to be an ID only. Our country is here. What I wanted to show for data where we actually don't need a mapping like we had for our data representation of the JSON we got back from Apple, we can actually completely leave out the data, the field. We don't have to tell the framework what our data stream looks like. It will still pick up and automatically create all these fields for us to use later. And this is a really, really great thing for lazy programmers. It might not be the best thing that you write stable stuff, but for prototypes, for fast programming where you might not know what data you get, or you might not know the entire data feed. You can do it just in that way, or just do a couple of fields that you know about, and the others will still be available for you in your templates and so on. So the fields representations are generated automatically now by the framework. For anyone who has experience with XJS version 3 and 4, well, not in 3, but in version 4, you always had to have the fields, so the framework understood what was consumed, and any other data that was not in the field array was put into something called the raw property. So if you're an XJS4 developer and plan to upgrade to XJS5, there's no such thing as the raw property anymore, because everything will be available in the fields array now as data in the data property of the JavaScript object, no matter if you define the field or not. So you always have access to it. But if you used the raw property in your XJS4 programs, in your apps, you might want to look into that and refactor that, because the raw property is no longer there. But it's available, but it's deprecated and might go or will go away. So now, going back to our main model, we just add a new what's it called? A new store. And I have the snippet for that. Or did I forget about that? Gee, I don't have this snippet. Okay. So I'll just have to countries. And in this case, we're using a tree store, so we have to define a type. But the default type is just a simple store, but if we want something special, like a tree store that knows about hierarchies in our data, we just have to tell it that it's a tree store. And I'll just go over to my existing application and copy that over, because I don't completely remember all the children, the inline data we have to use. I'll just copy it. And inheritance. Anything else? No. Okay. So now we have our store. Again, we will need something to consume that store, and we still have a country container that's not doing anything right now, but we want to put our tree in here. So we'll just add a tree panel to the West region, give it a reference as well, a width, and this use arrows and icon class. That's just a little bit of styling. Then we bind the store, the country store that we just created, and we attach an event listener on country select. We'll flush this listener out just in a second. I'll just need to add something in my inheritance string. And do a quick Sencha app refresh. And going back here, we now have our country list. We have an event listener, but that's actually not attached to a callback method at the moment. So what we're doing is now we finally go into our business logic, that's the wrong file, into our main controller, and just clean that up for a second as well, because we haven't touched that before, and add our new this two callback methods. That's something that's left over from our scaffolding of the starter app we built at the beginning when we did Sencha generate app. But now we have an on country select. That's the tree somewhere. No, not the store. I think. Okay, so I'll just take a peek in here, not to get it too wrong. These extra 2 parameters, so it's easier. Okay, so when we select a country in our list, we'll run this callback, and we'll get what we call a selection model, but what we care about is the record we selected. And from this record, we get its ID. And if we look into our model, where is it? The ID is just the shorthand for the country we selected. And this is the thing we have to put into our URL to request the new data. And by doing this, we just get the store that is attached that we called tune, so we get it by its name, then get its proxy, because the proxy has the representation of the JSON proxy we did in our tune model, and this proxy is doing the backend request, and we just change its URL by setting a new value with the new country we selected, and then we load the store new and get the new data. So now, if we reload that, and for example, so we're by default we're loading Taiwan. So we're loading Germany now. We have a different set, and can find one of my favorite songs. As Caesar said yesterday, rock and roll into JavaScript. So, yeah, absolutely. That's what we're here for. Okay. Oh. What is left? We have our application. We're completely done. Everything is here. We have our country selection. We have our videos. We have our preview. I'll just mute and let it play. Okay, what is missing? Nothing. We're done. So, that's our final app. But wait, isn't something about touch, about mobile devices? And at the moment, you can't touch this. Well, actually you can, and that's the great thing about XJS5. It has touch capabilities built right into it. You don't believe me? Well, I'll show you. Here's my air sorter. That's really my iPad. Just have to reload because the live folder wasn't there. So now if I go into my live, here's my application. Just crank up the volume. Anything you want me to play? Anything special? I can touch and scroll. I can select the countries. This might be a little bit slower. Or the codecs is not supported on these devices, but that's something different. It should work, but what I wanted to show is, okay, it works, but maybe I don't want to use it in the landscape mode. I want to use it that way. What's that? I can't use that anymore. I don't see the video, the names. The preview is too big. The country selection. What's that? Well, that's stupid. Okay, we have a solution for that as well. So let's get back into representation. Because with XJS5 for the first time, we can address that right away. And that's through something we call responsive configuration. Not to be compared, or not to be responsive web design. Because you can't just shrink, and we have a really simple example here, but think about a complex enterprise application, maybe for a bank or for a big enterprise, where you have large data representation in tables, in grids, or in charts. You just can't shrink that. It's not just shrinking it down, but you need the application to be smart to react on these changes. And with this responsive configuration, we are now able to do that. So the responsiveness is just added to our application step by step, just only there where we need it, and only for the components where we need it. And we do that through something we call a mixin. A mixin is there, it's not like a class, it's just something to be added to add behavior to an existing component, to an existing class. And in this case, it's adding the responsiveness to a component. And then we use it where our component is needed. And I've been talking a little bit too much. I won't do the complete coding right now. I'll just talk through because I want to give you some time to ask questions as well. But we'll add it to responsive config, and in this case, in my example, I'll be using a wide and tall representation, and this could also be addressed in a similar way that maybe we're already used to in media queries in CSS. So you could say width larger than 800 pixels, then do this behavior. If it's smaller than 800, do the other thing. Or wide and tall are really great to use because on the desktop always the wide is used automatically when the size is wider than tall. So you could also use landscape or portrait or a string saying width larger, smaller, just as in media queries. And then because I said, well, we have this ugly tree here that we're using, but we don't want to use that. We want just to have more space for our video selection and for our preview. So we'll be using something that can consume this tree structure. In our case, it's just a flat tree. But if we had branches as well, like we have Europe, Asia, America, Africa as our categories, as our continents, where our countries sit in, then we would have a second level. And a breadcrumb navigation, well, everyone probably knows about the breadcrumb navigation, and this is something similar. It looks like a breadcrumb navigation and can consume the tree that we already created, can do the same with our country selection. So we only have to define our component and then consume what's already there. And if we are wide, so we have space for our tree, for our country selection, we hide this breadcrumb. But if we're tall and don't have space for it, we show it. And the other way around for our tree. So that's how we add our smart responsive configuration to our application. And then we end up with something that looks like that. This is our desktop. But these are the screens for our mobile devices. Landscape and portrait. And I'll also show it on the live device, but I'll just do a little trick. I'll just do a quick That should work. Let's see. It's still working that way. Let's reload. I'll just go into my tunes folder. That's the one I just checked out. So now we have our tree to the left-hand side, have our videos in the middle. I disabled the autoplay here, or so, but what we're looking for is that. So the tree's gone. It's now this breadcrumb navigation. We have our videos here, and I didn't optimize it that well. It should be a little bit taller to fit our preview, but it's fine. Okay. So far. That's the responsive configuration, just a couple of lines of code. In code, just to show you, it's really not that much we have to do. So we just have to get our mixing in, so it does understand what needs to be done. Then we have to add our breadcrumb, and this we put into the north region. But if we're on a wide screen, we just hide the breadcrumbs. But if you're on a tall screen, we don't hide it in here. And for our tree panel, we just do it the other way around. That's everything we have to do to get this navigation going. Whereas, okay, there's a second thing, or a third thing, because our video preview is, when it's on a wide screen, it's on the east, whereas if it's tall, it's in the south. So these are things, these are simple examples. They can be way more complex. And you can basically address any of these properties from an XJS base class that has a setter, and all the base properties have that. Okay. And does anyone have an Android tablet? Because I just showed it here. So you can go to this address, or no, it should be this address. Oops. Should be this address. And you should be able. Oh, that might only work if you're on the same Wi-Fi as me. And that would be which one? The JSDC 2014 R12 5G. If you're on this Wi-Fi and you go to that address, you should be able to see the application as well. It will also work on a phone. Well, most phones aren't that big, unless you maybe have a big Samsung phone or the brand new iPhone 6 Plus. But that's all possible. Okay. Q&A. I know I've been talking a lot. Now, yes, please.
May I have a trial region in the region? You know, like in your UI router, you can have a trial view in the view.
So view in a view.
Yes, view in a view.
Well, that's basically our item. So we have our master view, that is our panel with the title, and we put our data view in, and our preview view, and our... We put everything into one file at the moment, but we could do that in different ways as well.
For example, may I define region in the central region?
You can redivide that, of course. Yeah. That's you're flexible everywhere. So you could put another layout, for example, an H-box layout where everything is horizontal, put next to each other, or vertical on top of each other, or a column layout, or another border layout where you have the different regions. You could put all this into any of the other regions. So the layouting mechanism and engine is really powerful in XJS. Yes. Please.
I want to ask a question. It's about I'm interested about the video streaming. Is it implemented by browser or a central library?
It's the browser. We're using the native HTML5 video tag there.
So RNTP, right? Real-time NP. Real-time latency.
That's in the. I'm not completely sure, but it's just this video tag that's new in HTML5.
We've seen JSDC.tw has many good features such as MVVM and responsive, but we use JSDC since version 3. And is there any suggestion for how to upgrade this existing application to new XJS version?
From XJS 3 to XJS 5. That's a great question, but a difficult answer. So the easy answer would be start creating a new XJS 5 application and refactor the bits and pieces from XJS 3 to 5 that can be addressed. Unfortunately, there's no just turn of a button that will turn that on, because we definitely know we made it really difficult for developers to upgrade, and that's also true from 3 to 4, because when we introduced the MVC in XJS 4 and now the MVVM in XJS 5, so the upgrade path from 4 to 5 is really easy. So basically, send your command will help you there, but 3 to 4, 3 to 5, or 3 through 4 to 5 is not that easy, because the framework internals, the class system has changed quite a bit. So XJS 3 can't understand these MVC patterns and MVVM patterns, whereas the new XJS 4 and then 5, they understand that. But what I recommend is, and I'll get to that next, there is blog posts about and demos about how to upgrade from 3 to 4. But if you're if you want to upgrade to 5 right away, I recommend that, because in the end it's more or less a rewrite, a real refactoring from the old pattern or the non-pattern in XJS 3 to the pattern in XJS 5 now. And if you want to get in contact, we definitely can help you there. We're not just providing frameworks, we're also providing services to help you with something like that, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, please.
I'm curious about where data was saved.
Data service?
I'm curious where data was saved in which folder.
I'm not sure if I completely understand.
Such as the information from iTunes and where the data, we scrape the data to local websites and save them in
okay, so the question is if we have to store the data somewhere locally that we retrieve from iTunes. Did I understand that right?
You mean the data was not saved in local?
No, it was on the internet. In the example.
It's a real time.
Yes. Yes, it's fetched real time.
Oh, thank you.
But you could also store it in your local host on your own server and retrieve it from there. That would be the example I had up front that I prepared if we didn't have such a great Wi-Fi. And this would be the data package that we touched upon that would help you there. So either tell it to retrieve something off the internet through JSON-P, through a RESTful API, through a SOAP call, anywhere in the internet, or request it from your own domain in your server environment. So both ways are possible in the data package. Proxies there, HX proxies will help you. But there's also proxies to help with HTML5 databases like WebSQL and the like. Okay. Yes, please.
Could I implement the WebSocket function in the DST
Yes, you can. So that's definitely possible. That is something I've done in the past where we built an application that was running in two separate browser windows on two separate tabs. And this client had the requirement the main application has to run on one screen and the side application has to run on the second monitor. So and there they've been using Firefox, and in Firefox you can tell to open a window, a tab on the second screen in full screen mode, for example. And we put a WebSocket for these two windows to communicate with each other. So we had a grid in one monitor, and if you selected something there, the details were loaded into a form on the second monitor, and that was done through WebSockets. Yes. So all the new HTML5 features, everything that's possible with HTML5 is possible with XJS. Some of the more, or the newer features might not be yet there because they're not completely in the standard or not implemented in all the browsers. But we essentially definitely believe in the future of HTML5, including JavaScript, ECMAScript 6, so the new standards. We're always driving that while also keeping compatibility to the legacy browsers like IE8, IE9. That's needed in some of the enterprise environments. Well, you get the timeout card.
Okay, I guess that pretty much concludes the whole workshop. Let's give a round of applause for Stefan.那如果你们真的还有问题，那太久不敢问，那等一下是30分钟的休息时间，可以就是
来先面包回他也是可以的。I just told them that it's going to be like 30-minute breaks, so if they have questions and they're too shy to ask, we'll just maybe surround you during the break time. 那非常感谢今天大家来参加。